It was a time of tyrants. A time when the only way to uphold justice was to break the law. A time that made a hero into a legend. Kevin Costner is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Rated PG-13. Starts Friday, June 14th.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Not Content Podcast. My name is Jerome Cuson. This week, we will be continuing our theme of Robin Hood. This week, we are going to be discussing Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves from 1991. As always, leave a 4 or 5 star review on Apple and Spotify to get those algorithms going. Please like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Click the bell icon for notifications. And Brian, we could have done the Ridley Scott 2010 Robin Hood. We could have also done the Taron Egerton 2018 Robin Hood, but quite frankly, neither of those two movies are as notable or as successful as this movie right here. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. In 1991, on a budget of $48 to $60 million, depending on your source, this movie made almost $400 million. You have Kevin Costner coming off of his Academy Award winning Dances with Wolves. He is as white hot as you could be given his last couple of years of the 80s and Dances with Wolves. You have Morgan Freeman coming off of Driving Miss Daisy in a breakout role. You have Alan Rickman coming off of Die Hard playing another villain. You have Christian Slater, who is a rapidly rising young star. You have Mary Elizabeth Mastrano, a very good character actress in her own right, and who has done a number of other big movies from that era. And Brian, despite all of that, despite the money, despite the cast, despite the banger love theme, I absolutely hate this movie.
Well, you didn't mention Bryan Adams kind of stealing a lot of the thunder, because I
said there was a banger of a love theme, which is what I was alluding to.
I know, but the soundtrack did incredible numbers, dude, and it got incredible playtime. And whenever you have that in the 90s and the 80s, like it's a sign that your movie's doing well financially in the box office, I think. And I can almost back that up 100% with a lot of the hits that I've been listening to around this time. And it's like, if you have a big box office soundtrack to go with or like a big soundtrack to go with your box office, it's because the soundtrack was that damn good. And this song was nominated for Grammys. It's got a memorable music video. It's been made fun of on Family Guy. It's played on radio every single day, guaranteed, like on all those 90s stations. It's tremendous, and I think that it kind of elevated the box office a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. I would say it put it over the top in terms of wow.
I don't know. I feel like Kevin Costner at this point is, again, he is as white hot as you could be, given the fact that he had just won an Oscar. He's coming off of Bull Durham and Field of Dreams and Dances with Wolves. Plus, you've got the Robin Hood element. You've got the fact that the trailer for this is really good. Like, you could cut a really good trailer from the footage, even if the movie isn't great. And again, the Alan Rickman element should not be underestimated either, because Die Hard was a very big deal. So this movie has a lot going for it. And I've heard people say they appreciate the campiness. I've never embraced that idea, because to me, the movie has camp elements, but it's not campy enough. Like, Batman Forever is a movie that I don't like it, but if people say they enjoy it because of how campy it is, then I get it. I can at least understand it.
See, I think they're getting the campiness from Alan Rickman's performance, because this performance is so all over the place, but it feels like he's just trying to steal the show, knowing that the script sucks. And I kind of got confirmation of that when I read some of the background about how he wasn't totally satisfied with the script, and they improved some of the lines and some of the characters. But it just felt like,
and then did work for Kevin Costner, brother, and then he tried to cut tried to cut him out in the editing room.
And then there's multiple edits of this movie before we got released where there was more scenes with Kevin Costner, there was less scenes with Alan Rickman, but then at the same time it's like Alan Rickman was the best part of the movie, so why are we cutting him out? You know what I mean? It was very
I love that Kevin Reynolds and Kevin Costner did not get along Then the movie makes all this money, and they're like, okay, let's go do Waterworld together. And then they make Waterworld, and it ends in a complete fucking disaster. And Kevin Reynolds is essentially never heard from again. Like, he does make a couple of movies. He does
Yeah,
direct a
like
couple of
I think the
movies,
last
but,
good one was The Count of Monte Cristo, but that was still like a modest September kind of hit, if I recall.
I mean,
Something like that.
his career essentially is done.
Yeah, it's just crazy because like this movie, I don't know. I mean, it has some good elements. Like I said, like I don't like the costume design. I love the music, obviously. And
I think I really agree with you on the costume design. I think it's
because like
awful.
I don't know. I think Robin Hood deserves bright colors, and I think I'm being biased, obviously. But once you see that 38 version, it's like, yeah, Robin Hood has to be done
Why
this
is
way
Robin
because
Hood why is everybody dressed? Everybody's dressed too similarly. Why does Robin Hood have a cape? No
oh
cape.
god, we got the end of discussion now. You brought this up, and I had no answer because I was like, well, it's Batman. That's all I can think of is Batman because it's
You're probably not
91.
wrong. Yeah,
You
undoubtedly
know what I
you're
mean?
not.
And this is going to come out the same year as Batman Returns, and I think it's
No,
just a
Batman
week
Returns
out.
comes out the next year. Batman Returns comes out
Oh,
in
92.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think we're also like really close to T2, so which is kind of shocking in terms of the box office,
T2
right?
was literally the number one movie of the year, and this number two movie was Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Yeah, it's crazy to me how that kind of breaks down. But again, you kind of mentioned that because of the VHS rule, right? This was the first movie to break that rule?
Yeah, this is one of the early movies that kind of went to VHS, and people were able to buy it for like $12.99 or something. So, I
And
mean,
there
that
was a
clearly
period where there was like only a rental period only before the consumer
right.
can purchase the movie.
Yeah.
I know that sounds kind of shocking, people, but times change, and it's very similar to how like we get streaming time, slots.
I
You
mean,
get it 90
financially,
days
it
after the
wasn't worth
movie.
it because these movies literally cost like $100. I mean, the
Yeah,
Coliseum videos from the year '80s literally were like 100 or like $60 or something, and that was for like the hour-long versions of those tapes.
yeah, it's crazy how the VHS era was just so different in terms of like making the money off of it, and which led to the rise of video rental stores and all that stuff. But because I do remember watching this on VHS. I saw this in theaters. I never saw it in theaters, but
I
I do
definitely
remember,
remember seeing this on VHS.
and I watched this on VHS a lot because it was like so replayable. I think my parents just played it on it over and over. So I remember certain scenes a lot, just certain aspects and details never really got. But also the Blu-ray that I have is the extended cut, which I didn't even know existed. And I guess Jerome watched the regular version, and the version I saw has this extended stuff with the witch, and you find all this dark shit about Alan Rickman's character. And I guess this is where we talk about how there's no Prince John, which I think is so crucial to the story, because you need the Prince John character to be like the evil brother that's trying to oust King Richard from power. And that was the whole point of like that role, in the original by Claude Rains. And they just eliminated that and kind of combined it with this manic, satanic version of the Sheriff of Nottingham with Alan Rickman. So it's very interesting the way
It's
they went
like
with
they
it.
want this to be Macbeth, and this isn't Macbeth. Like, part of me thinks this
It's
is
not
like
Shakespearean. This is not a Shakespearean story.
it should not be. I mean, I feel like Kenneth Branagh watched this movie, and basically all of the Shakespeare adaptations are some version of this movie because they feel very, very similar. I did not like the supernatural elements. That is not what this like to me the best version of this story. That's not what this is. And it's a very 90s, so they do a lot of things to kind of update the story, it seems. The first thing they do is Robin Hood used to be rich and is now poor. That is absolutely something you do post Reagan because he's guilty for being rich and now he's going to try to get back to the poor. I mean, I get that. I don't like it, but I understand it. And they turn Maid Marian into kind of a fighter in her own right. Like, I feel like every 90s and even 2000s movie had the scene where somebody is under a hood or under a mask or wearing something to cover their face and they engage in a fight and oh my god, it's a woman and the lady can fight. I hate that stuff. And
I think that started with Return of the Jedi, man. I really do, because that was
that
I
really a
don't.
twist though? I don't know. That Leia was
But I
even
think that's the
like
first time as an audience we may have seen that trope. Because after that, it
no
just feels like they did a
because
lot.
Leia fought in New Hope. Like we see Leia operating a blaster in New Hope. So I don't buy that. I mean, we
And
see
I think
Leia
we got
fighting
this in
and shooting a
Elektra,
blaster in the fire.
or not Elektra, but Daredevil with Elektra. I think we got
Yeah,
that
I mean it's it's
something
it's it's
similar.
it's something that we could point out in numerous movies. I'm sure it's a trope that if I really wanted to look up, that I could find it in a number. I mean, there's so many. I mean, but it's just I think it's representational of the problem with this movie. And I'm not against women like fighting or women being more actively involved in the story, but it's just like this character should not behave this way. That is not the point of Maid Marian in any version of the story that works.
Yeah, I like it when she's like a past love interest that kind of Robin and herself kind of regret not fully fulfilling, and then it's just like, once you get older, you realize, oh, now's the time to finally find my past love and reconnect, kind of thing. That's the version that I like. But in
I
this
mean,
case,
I
they
I
kind of
would
do
say
that.
even I would say even the version they do in 1938 where they have never met at all also is fine. I definitely think the 73 version does it better, but I don't necessarily have a problem. I do have an issue with her just kind of behaving in this way, and it doesn't work.
Well,
Like
that's
they and
certainly gonna,
part
yeah,
and they have no chemistry is the other problem. Is that
yeah, that's the
Mary
other
Elizabeth
issue too.
Mastrano and Kevin Costner have zero
They're
chemistry.
fine actors in their own way, but I think their chemistry is just non-existent. And the other issue too is the accents that's coming and going, and I think that really kills a lot of the vibe
Oh,
of
Kevin
this movie.
Costner's accent is a
Christian
felony.
Slater, I mean, look, I almost watched In the Name of the Rose to prep for this movie, but I decided not to because it's like a long haul and it's a murder mystery and you got to pay attention to that one. But he had a decent trying English accent in that one. So I was kind of expecting it, and then he didn't really like pull it off in this one. He's just half-assing it. And the reveal that he's Robin's brother really kind of like irked me. And it still irks me today because it just doesn't feel natural or normal. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. I get it. They're both like young Hollywood hunks, and they're trying to like, oh, they're brothers, and they're gonna have this relationship now as brothers, and they really don't pull it
I
off
mean, Kevin
in the end.
Costner is the current star, and I think the idea is that Christian Slater is like, this is the role that you give to the rising star. It's the same principle Matt Damon in and his role in Saving Private Ryan. Like he doesn't have the biggest role, but he has like the most important role, if that makes sense. I think that's what they're going for by casting Christian Slater. It doesn't really work.
And the character's not really working for me either because he keeps saying rich boy. And I'm thinking like we never see this Robin Hood as like the rich boy that he's like proclaimed
He's
to be
always
as.
he's always the former. I mean, and part of the problem is this movie's over two. It's almost 2 hours and 20 minutes, but they don't really show Robin Hood as a rich person. And I don't know, maybe that just bogs down the movie even more than it already. I mean, because there is a middle portion of this movie where literally nothing happens for like a solid 20 minutes. It is all in the name of quote unquote character work between Robin Hood and Maid Marian and Robin Hood and the other people. But it just, man, this movie definitely has some moments that could have been cut.
I would have cut the birth scene because listen, dude, like I know I know C-sections are like a thing now that's like been a thing for like a couple hundred years now in medical science, but my goodness, no anesthesia, just biting down on wood and you're just gonna stitch her back up? Like what? Like
We
that
didn't need
what?
that. We didn't
Oh
need
my goodness. Oh my, and they're just like partying like immediately after and like she's just
that.
fine, like just oh I just had a C-section and I'm just gonna party. Like what the fuck is going on? I mean you don't notice that as a kid. You just think oh it's like birth, right? They're having a kid. But then when you see all the details and like the details they're not telling you and like the calf thing, and I'm like, oh yeah, she's gonna have like a C-section, and they're gonna make it seem like it's just like a totally natural thing, and then they use it as this like device to like explain the differences between Muslim culture and like Christian culture, which they have that friar Tuck going at it with Morgan Freeman's Moorish character throughout the movie, which I guess is okay. It's good fodder in the background, but like I don't know, it just made like Friar Tuck look like a fucking bigot. But then he kind of learns, I guess. But I know that's fine, and it's also the same actor from Richie Rich, the crazy scientist. I forget his name, but he's a very much character actor. Like if Jack Black was in the '80s, that would have been him. Like I see Jack Black as like an amazing Friar Tuck. If you ever do a version of that, but yeah, some of the side characters in this were still good. It's just the main actors were just not delivering on their accents, except Alan Rickman, because of course he's naturally gifted in that
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely.
But the guy, Sir Guy, got wasted too. Like it almost as if like they got. I don't know if they were just tired of him on set or because he's had drug issues. If you look up this actor, he's the actor from Nope, the cameraman from Nope, and he was also on set for The Crow. He was the bad guy in The Crow and was on set when Brendan Lee died. But apparently I don't know. From what I read, it's like a little bit of a coke thing. So I don't know if they just got rid of him halfway through the movie because they didn't need him anymore. And they just like, we're going to put all the heat on Alan Rickman from the here on out and just forget Sir Guy because he is totally just gutted by his own cousin, Alan Rickman, and totally forgotten. It's almost as if he wasn't even needed for the movie, which is, I don't know. It's again like
Michael Lincoln has a really interesting career because he's also in Strange Days as well, playing a very similar role as this movie and The Crow.
And he's also in Metro, which is not as heavy into drugs, but he's very good as the heavy in that. But
have you ever
his
seen
voice.
Strange Days, Brian? Have you ever seen it?
No, you recommended it to me, and I think eventually I'll watch it.
We may need to break something and do it because it's the 30th anniversary.
I might need mushrooms for that movie. Apparently,
it's incredible. I mean, it's fucking tremendous, man. It rules.
But he's also good in it. And
I think
his voice is the key. I think
Strange Days. I think it's not. It's obviously a very different movie in a lot of ways, but I think it's doing what this movie is trying to do, except be a lot better at it in terms of like some of the some of the elements, some of the cinematography, some of the character development. Like I think that movie is kind of playing in the same ballpark of kind of being campy, but kind of not being campy. But I think it works much better. I think the problem is Kevin Costner can't do camp. Like he's just not. He's incapable of it. He is way too self-serious. He's way too sincere. Watch any Kevin Costner movie. You will never watch a Kevin Costner movie and tell me that it's good camp because it's literally impossible because he's not that guy. And I think the movie suffers for it. And honestly, I think his career has kind of suffered for it because, again, he is somebody who just takes himself way too seriously. And I think that has a ceiling. And I think that ceiling was ultimately the parade of bombs that he made in the late 80s and the late 90s going into the aughts. And look, he certainly had some recovery. Being on Yellowstone, one of the biggest TV shows in a long, long time, certainly helps. But like you look at him as Jonathan Kent, I mean, he is such a wet blanket in that movie. It's like he personally, I think the more that I think about Man of Steel, the more I think that the Jonathan Kent character is what breaks the movie.
Well, we have different feelings on that for sure. We've discussed it years
ago.
We
have litigated it, but
yes,
I think even you would agree that Kevin Costner as Jonathan Kent was just bad.
I mean, I would have liked more of it, but that's a different story. It's just he didn't have the time because of the structure of Man of Steel is too much of an origin story where it's not enough time to focus on him growing up, and I think that's the strength of Smallville in terms of a show. You just couldn't get that in the time frame given because it's an origin story.
What else do we want to say about this movie? Do we want to talk about Sean Connery in this movie for 2 minutes?
I was gonna get to that because man, what a perfect cameo to bring out because that's like if anyone's gonna be the king of fucking England, it's fucking Sean Connery, dude. Like he owned that 2 minutes, dude, or whatever 1 minute he was in this. I don't know, but it was a great cameo. And they're gonna. What
if he was Prince John and it was he and Rickman going back and forth?
See, there you go. Thank you. Like this movie needed something like that because I don't know. I don't like the witch stuff, and I don't even think that's actual witchcraft. I think she's just crazy, and I mean, there's no actual witchcraft going on. It feels like
again. I think they're intentionally alluding to Macbeth in some way.
I know that, but it's just so like it doesn't.
It's
fit.
bad.
Like,
it's really, really bad, and the fact that she is in the climax of the movie fighting against like Morgan Freeman and Kevin Costner. It's really bad.
And the fact that she runs into the fucking spear, like,
oh my god!
Like, what are you not gonna expect happen in that situation? Not get stabbed? Like, it was. Oh my goodness!
It was,
yeah. And then this whole idea that Morgan Freeman is waiting for the moment to save him. It felt like he saved him a lot in this movie, but maybe I'm just like misremembering the action sequences. But I would say that he fucking killed a lot of fucking people, saving other people. But
and I know you complained about the accent, but Morgan Freeman's accent in this movie I mean, again, I understand that he doesn't have like street cred that he would get a few years later, but I mean, how do you tell Morgan Freeman not to do his voice? I don't understand
I
it.
mean, if they're gonna let Alan Rickman do whatever he wanted, I guess they could just let him do whatever accent he wanted to, because again, there was like no control over the accents. It was like so all over the place with all these different actors and like straight, like you could tell like, oh, this guy's definitely from England, and then you could tell like this guy's definitely American trying to be English. That's for sure. And I
Like
think
to
that
me,
was
it seems like you might
an
as well
issue.
just cast Sam Neill as Robin Hood. Like clearly, that's what you're going for anyway. Just do
I
that
was
instead.
thinking Timothy Dalton
I mean, that's also
or
fine.
Pierce Brosnan, like something like that, where you got some charm, because
I I think
also
I think
there's
Timothy
no
Dalton
charm.
I think Timothy Dalton actually fixes the movie because I think he can bring some of that James Bond energy, but I think Robin Hood can be kind of cynical in a way, and I think it kind of would work more for the tone of this movie because I think we are supposed to take Robin Hood more seriously, and I don't think he's as meant to be as much of a goofball. And if you're not going to do that, I think Timothy Dalton is the better version of that.
Yeah, but they didn't want to go all, all English actors. They didn't want to alienate that American audience, because this is also an
Which is
American
weird because that
production.
would not be a problem now because they would because
Yeah,
all these movies are American actors doing like the Fantastic Four movie literally has two British people in the roles of Johnny and Sue Storm, and they're going to be, of course, using American accents, but it's not going to matter.
I know. It's just so weird how it was so different back in the day. And my brother was even like watching this with me, and he's like, for a good movie, you can kind of forgive like accents, but if it's so
I agree.
noticeable, it's gonna stick out. You know what I'm
I
saying? And
agree.
I agree with my brother on that. And he's
If
like,
this movie was better, I
but
don't
it's
think it would
not
be as
that.
big.
It's not that at all. You know what I'm saying? But also you did also mention the Lord of the Rings, how probably taking influence from this, and I could see
Lord
that.
of the I can't imagine Peter Jackson like the Force stuff just feels has way too similar of a vibe. And I mean that I'm actually saying that in a complimentary way in this case because it feels like Peter Jackson took some of the Force stuff, maybe even some of the costume stuff, and just did a better job.
With brighter colors that stick out and pop, because my goodness, I
I mean, you understand that you never understand the geography of the forest in this movie and in Lord of the Rings you do.
right, and that's the thing too, is like, and then what happened to all those Celts, the Scottish Celts that they recruited? Did they all just die after that first battle? Like it made no sense. Like they just disappeared. So I don't know. Like there's some things in the script that we were just reaching for stuff to kind of make it like modern and like epic, but it just didn't connect because there's all these different things that are just kind of like you know, unfulfilled. Like what happened to that fucking brute Celtic guy? Right? You know what I'm saying? Like they showed him and he did this thing, and I'm not sure if he died or not, but yeah, and that whole sequence of like the forest on fire was pretty interesting. I gotta say, it looked cool because they were using the ropes well to go into the trees, but then again, it's like it kind of came off bland because of the colors. But that's just, again, like if I don't like the colors in a movie, it's gonna be really hard for me to like the set design and everything. So hence me not liking the costumes either.
Yeah, I don't know. This movie feels simultaneously like very 90s, but also they're trying to go for like this timeless element, and this movie just doesn't work, and that's why I come and say this is a 4 out of 10. I don't like this movie very much at all, and it's not fun, and it's kind of a slog.
I'm going with a 5 only because I think the soundtrack is kind of its legacy, to be honest. Like if we had the legacy scale back when we were doing the rating system for the comic book movies, like this would be a 7 on the legacy scale because of the soundtrack, and not just because of the Bryan Adams song. It's like Morgan Creek as a production company took the theme from the opening and used it as their main theme, and it's so iconic now because they play it on every Morgan Creek
I mean,
production.
I think the funny thing is like I started this movie having forgotten that the Robin Hood theme was the Morgan Creek theme, and the Morgan Creek um, bug comes up and it's silent. I'm like, why is it silent? And then I hear the Robin Hood music. I'm like, oh, that's why. That's right.
It predated
This
literally.
predated
And then,
it.
yeah,
I
but it's
mean,
cool
look, I can
because
understand why Morgan Creek would adopt it. I mean, it is a very good theme, and I think the music is the strongest element of this movie. The problem is the rest of the movie In reading Roger Ebert's review, he also gave it 2 stars, and he just said it was a depressing version of the story, and it's just joyless. Like there's no joy to this movie, and I think part of the fun of Robin Hood is the story inherently is dark. You literally have a poor person that is stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. So there should be depressing and sad elements to it, but there's got to be some joy. There's got to be some fun, and this movie has literally none of that. And I'm gonna guess that the Ridley Scott and Taron Egerton versions also have zero joy as well, and that's what they're missing.
I remember the Ridley Scott version not being interesting at all, and me thinking like, I think I like the Disney version better than this because it's very similar to that, where they try to take it too seriously, and it just doesn't work when you try to take it too seriously because it needs that charm, it needs that kind of fun to it. And you mentioned like the lack of joy. Like I think an example of that is like in the Disney version, which we reviewed last week, they're always making fun of Prince John, like as a thing to like anytime they're feeling down, they just make fun of Prince John and pretend they're sucking their thumb and everyone starts laughing. You don't get that in this. And that's, a big thing is like, I think you need Prince John in this to really like fucking show you like these dudes are evil and it just goes all the way to the top. It's not about just one dude trying to usurp and get power by marrying someone of royal blood, like Game of Thrones style. It's very much higher up. And I think that was missing from this because I think the idea of like no Prince John really just changes this movie in terms of like the hierarchy and the bad guys, because then it just shifts all the focus to Alan Rickman. But once he's gone, it's like he wasn't much of a threat anyway because he was just totally like off his rocker.
They leave him behind in so many ways. I have a theory. I think this is the movie that started to turn people against Kevin Costner, and that's how you end up with one of the reasons that Waterworld would end up bombing so badly.
And Waterworld doesn't have nearly the memorable soundtrack. Just saying.
Kevin Costner won Worst Actor at the Golden Raspberry Awards for this movie. I'm not sure if I agree with that necessarily. I think the Golden Raspberry Awards are kind of shitty in some ways, but I think that when you kind of take the temperature, that's kind of where we're heading, and it just feels like this is kind of where the tide turns. Like, yes, this is a successful movie in terms of the finances, but man, this movie, it feels like this is the beginning of something for him.
Yeah, and I think, JFK was not necessarily like a Kevin Costner vehicle. It was more of a, Oliver Stone vehicle.
I think that's much more Oliver Stone. Like as big of a star as he is, that's much more of him.
And then Tin Cup, I would say Tin Cup is kind of like, okay, it's not the same anymore. That's officially it.
That's after Waterworld even.
I guess so. Yeah. So around that era.
So he has The Bodyguard, which is another just enormous movie in so many ways. And I think in a lot of ways it has something in common with Robin Hood in that it's a really big movie. Not as good, banger soundtrack though. And then you have Wyatt Earp in '94, which is it's basically the other Wyatt Earp movie, which of course Tombstone is the good one. Wyatt Earp, also a joyless exercise. So yeah, Kevin Costner doing these joyless exercises up until he gets Tin Cup, which is somewhat redeemable, but you have The Postman and Message in a Bottle and Waterworld, which are not huge hits.
And let's not forget Horizon, which I was the only person in the theater watching that movie last year. And apparently there's 3 more of those movies coming.
An enormous box office flop. Again, another just huge flop.
Yeah. He takes risks, man, but he doesn't seem to be in, like people are not telling him like this is not working, brother. If you know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of like that Hogan thing.
He is telling other people that's not gonna work for me, brother.
Yeah, we make all these Hogan references, but he does have that Hogan kind of vibe. Let's just say that. But when he's playing to his strengths, he's on top of the world, right? Like that's what Hogan
I don't think it's a coincidence that all of the best things he's ever done, he is not the director of those things.
Except one. We got to get credits due. So.
Which is
Dances with Wolves.
I would argue. I would certainly argue against that. I think that movie is pretty overrated, but I can see the argument, and that's
it's too long. But I think it has some like. Great
I think the problem is that he is successful with that movie, and then he gets too much hubris, and then you end up with the run that he ends up with a few years later because of
Yeah,
it.
that's kind of where I'm at on agreement too. It's just unfortunate because I don't know. A lot of people remember this movie, man, but for different reasons. But I will
I don't
recommend
know. It's
only
weird. Like this movie is. I mean, it's successful. It makes almost $400
like
million
I don't want to
That
recommend
is.
the full 2.5 hours. You know what I'm saying? I want to recommend just going on YouTube and finding all the Alan Rickman clips
I
and
would
watching a
love to watch.
compilation,
I would love
and
to
that's
watch
about
the
it.
1 hour. I'd love to watch a 1 hour 45 minute cut of this movie, and just trim out a lot of stuff and see how it plays. Like just make
Probably
it an
better.
action movie.
Probably much
Just
better.
make it cut out a lot of dialogue. Just make it an action movie. See what happens.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think Kevin Costner should have stuck with a beard in this movie, but that's just me. I know they were trying to do the pretty boy
No,
thing,
the hair in
but
this movie is a whole other issue that we don't have time for.
I know it's just so weird, but I don't
Everybody
know.
has weird hair. Like everybody. Morgan,
But like
Kevin
why
Costner and
is
Morgan
Christian
Freeman.
Slater such a like close shaven like and then compared to like Little John where he's got this like wild animal beard. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's we got too many pretty boys. We need more actual ugly looking, dudes on screen for this kind of role. I don't know. That's my feeling on it. If this is the version you're going for, less pretty faces, but they try to do it all too much. So
All right, Brian, and we are going to finish Robin Hood Week with something way more fun than this. We are going to go 180 degrees, and we are going to discuss Mel Brooks, Robin Hood, Men in Tights. Brian, any preliminary thoughts that you want to share about this movie?
well, this is the first time we're reviewing a Mel Brooks movie, which I think is like kind of shocking, but we're finally getting there, folks. So, if this goes well, we might throw in like a Dracula towards the end of the year, Dead and Loving. And
Oh, God.
I know people don't like '90s Mel Brooks as much, but this is a '90s Mel Brooks movie, and I know it's got some interesting parts to it. But I think Men in Tights is really underrated, like really, really underrated, compared to like some other stuff he's done. So, but yeah, this is the first time we're talking about Mel Brooks. Knock on wood. Knock on wood. The man is 98 years old, so
If we're playing with fire,
we're
is
playing with
what we're
fire.
doing.
But man, yeah, just the way that he takes the original classic, mixes it up with like modern 90s humor, and the fact that we got Dave Chappelle in this in 1993 is like still crazy to think about. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about. And yeah, we'll talk about a famous scene in there too, where you know the whole circumcision thing is very so. Oh
I
man,
mean, in
it's
so many
it's
ways,
gnarly. That's all I'm gonna say.
I mean, this is not the last Mel Brooks movie, but in so many ways, it feels like a last Mel Brooks movie. And we'll get into why next week because you have a couple of notable cameos that we'll get into.
For sure. And I guess that kind of wraps up our discussion for this week. Yeah, it's been fun, but we love Kevin Costner, but man, this was kind of like the turn of the tide for sure.
It's pretty rough.
Yeah.
It is. Kevin Costner has had such a weird career with so many ups and downs that, like, I guess the only like Ben Affleck, I think is kind of similar in that there's been a lot. It's not up down up. Like it's up down up down up down. It's just it's incredible, and I feel like Ben Affleck has kind of followed a similar trajectory. And at some point, you could probably do a really good comparison just of their careers.
For sure. But that kind of wraps up this week's discussion. And next week, we'll have our final episode of Robin Hood to wrap up the month. So thank you for listening. We'll talk to you soon.